Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. I'm Lora Rolling and this is part 2 of the Blessed Drummer Ornament tutorial. This is the Blessed Drummer Ornament that we are making. It is so cute with all its musical notes and the drums and the crosses. I love it so much. Today we're going to be making the unit called drumsticks. If you haven't seen part 1 yet, that's okay. You can do these out of order. I'll have that video listed down below in the description. That way when you finish this one, you can go back and watch that one. We just have a few materials to get ready, so let's get them listed and then we can get started. Let's go. So the beads that we're going to be using in today's video are all Miyuki Delicas. I have opaque black, white pearl AB, silver lined gold, silver lined crystal, and bright copper plate. Just to keep it simple, I'm going to call this black, white, gold, silver, and copper. We'll also need some beading thread and a beading needle. I like to use the Eslon Fire thread in the color crystal, and this is a 4-pound thread. You could use a 6-pound thread if that's what you have. And then I like to use a size 10 beading needle. If all you have is a size 11 or a size 12, that would work too. For implements, I like to use my long nose pliers to hold on to my thread at the end of the video, and then I cut my thread with scissors. And then in the beginning, I'm going to show you how I end the tail using the fire method. Let's thread our needle with 3 feet of thread and then we can get started. So I've threaded my needle and now I'm ready to pick up my first 3 beads. Let's pick up 3 white beads. And then we'll take our 3 beads and we'll pull them down to the bottom of the thread, leaving about a 6-inch tail. Now let's tie a square knot. So cross over on top and then pull your tail through, and then cross over on top again and pull your tail through. So now you should have what looks like a little snowman, 2 loops. I'm going to put my 2 fingers in the lower loop, the one that has the beads in it, and then I'm going to tug on the tail and the long thread until that top loop turns into a knot. Now, I'm not going to touch the tail to the flame, but I'm going to get it super duper close so that it melts the tip. And it turns the tip into this little teensy knot. So now, while I'm pulling on the long thread, I'm going to be twisting the loop until that little knot at the end of the tail meets the long thread. Now I'm going to take my thumbnail and pull that knot all the way down to the 3 beads. And it turns the 3 beads into this little teensy triangle, and that completes row number 1. So you'll notice that the knot is right in between the 2 beads. So let's tug on the thread until the knot is looking like it's coming out of one of the beads. And it looks like the thread is coming out of that bead also. Now let's pick up 1 copper bead and 1 white bead. And it looks like our thread is coming out of this bead, so let's sew through the next one, the one that it doesn't look like it's coming out of. And now I'm going to try to get those new beads to sit right on top of the ones that are below it. I call those below beads the buddy beads, so they're sitting right on top of their buddies. Now let's pick up 2 white beads. And we're coming out of this bead. Let's sew through the next. And once again, I'm going to try to get those beads to sit right on top of their buddies. Now we can pick up 2 more white beads. And we're coming out of this bead. Let's sew through the next. And this time, let's sew through the buddy bead also. So we're sewing through 2 beads. Each time we sew through 2 beads, what we're doing is stepping up, putting our thread in position to start the next row. So this completes row number 2, and now we get to start row number 3. Let's start by picking up 1 copper and 1 white and sew through the next bead. Now let's pick up 1 white bead. And we're coming out of this second bead right here. You'll notice that the third bead is set downward a little bit. We're going to skip that downward bead and we're going to sew the one that's poking up. I'm going to refer to the ones that poke up as up beads. Now let's pick up 1 copper and 1 white and sew through the next. Always making sure that they're sitting right on top of their buddies. Now let's pick up 1 white bead. Skipping the down bead, we're going to sew through the up bead. Now let's pick up 2 white beads and sew through the next. Then 1 copper bead. Skipping the down bead, we're going to sew through the up bead and its buddy. This is the last bead in this row that we're adding, so we're sewing through the last 2 beads, which means that now we get to start row number 4. Let's start with 2 white beads and sew through the next. Then 1 white, sew through the up. 1 copper, sew through the up. 1 copper and 1 white, sew through the next. 1 white, sew through the up. 1 white, sew through the up. 1 white and 1 silver, sew through the next. 1 white, sew through the up, and 1 copper, and sew through the last 2 beads. And now we get to start row number 5. Let's start by picking up 2 white beads, then 1 white, 1 white, 1 copper, one white and one black, one black, one black, one black, one black and one white, one white, one copper, and one copper. Sewing through the last two beads, and now we get to start row number 6. Let's start with 2 white beads, one white, one white, one copper, one copper, one white and one black, one black, one black, one black, one black, one black and one white, one white, one copper, one copper, and one white. Sewing through the last 2 beads, and now we get to start row number 7. Let's start with 2 white beads, one white, one white, one white, one copper, one copper, one white and one black, one gold, one gold, one gold, one gold, one gold, one black and one white, one white, one copper, 1 white, 1 white, and 1 gold. Sewing through the last 2 beads. And now we get to start row number 8. Let's start with 1 gold and 1 white. One white, one white, one white, one white, one white, one copper, one white and one black, one gold, one gold, one gold, one gold, one gold, one gold, one black and one white, one white, one copper, one white, one white, one white, and one gold. Sewing through the last 2 beads. And now we get to start row number 9. Let's start with 2 white beads, one white, one white, one white, one white, one white, one white, one copper, two white beads, one gold, 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 two white beads, 1 white, 1 copper, 1 white, 1 white, 1 white, 1 white, and 1 gold. Sewing through the last 2 beads. And now we get to start row number 10. Let's start with 2 white beads. One white, 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 one copper, two white beads, one black, one gold, one gold, one gold, one gold, one gold, one gold, one black, two white beads, one white, one copper, one white, one white, one white, one white, one white, and one gold. Sewing through the last two beads. And now we get to start row number 11. Let's start with two white beads, one white, one white, one white, one silver, one white, 1 white, 1 white, 1 white, 1 copper, 2 white beads, 1 white, 1 black, 1 gold, 1 gold, 1 gold, 1 gold, 1 gold, 1 black, 1 white, 2 white beads, 1 white, 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 1 gold, and 1 gold. Sewing through the last 2 beads. And now we get to start row number 12. Let's start with 2 white beads, 1 white, 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 2 white beads, 1 white, 1 black, 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 1 white, 2 white beads, 1 white, 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 and 1 white. Sewing through the last 2 beads, and that completes our 12 rows. If this is the first triangle that you've done with me, you'll see that I add connection beads to some of the sides, and I always cap the corners. So in this particular unit, we're not going to have any connection beads on this side, but we are going to have connection beads right here, and then we are going to have connection beads on this side also. So the first thing that we want to do is add 1 white bead to the corner, and that caps the corner, turns it into a little point. And now what I like to do is turn over my unit, and then I will be sewing without picking up any beads along this quadrant line until I get to this top bead at the corner again. So let's sew up 1 bead per row. And you don't really have to sew through the same beads that I sew through, as long as you're just sewing up 1 bead per row. You can pick random beads, and as long as you get to your goal, which is that corner bead, then you'll be fine. So this is usually when I ask the question of the day, and the question of the day is actually an emoji today. So if you don't know how to do emojis in the comments, just type drum, and hopefully one of the suggestions will be the picture of a little drum, or you can put like drummer boy or something like that, but add an emoji that pertains to drums, maybe a drumstick, which would look like a chicken leg, right? Or a turkey leg, but that would be fine too. I want to see the comments fill up with drums or drummer boys or drumsticks. Wouldn't it be cool if you had an emoji that was actually like drumsticks, like what we are creating in this unit? That would be fun. I don't think I have one of those on my phone, but yeah, so I can't wait to see what you all come up with. I love seeing your comments in the comment section. So you can also, of course, ask questions in the comment section. Just make comments, whatever. I love to read them. Alrighty, so we are now in that top corner bead. So now let's cap the bead by adding 1 white bead in the corner, and that turns it into a point. And now we're going to add connection beads up this side. So let's start with 1 white, 1 white, 1 copper, 1 black, 1 black, 1 black, 1 black, 1 black, 1 copper, 1 white, and 1 white. And now we are up at our third corner. So let's cap it with 1 white bead. And now we can add our connection beads up this side. So let's start with 1 white. They're all white, but I'm going to call them out for you. 1 white, 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 1 white. Now I'm actually sewing through that cap bead also, the pointer bead. So go ahead and sew through that one next. And then we're going to sew up the next bead right above that. And then we will sew through 6 beads. I'm also following the quadrant line. That's very helpful. That way we have enough beads to do our zigzag. So follow the quadrant line if possible, sewing up 1 bead per row until you've sewn up 6 more beads. Now we are in our 6th bead, which is the far left bead of this row of 4 beads. So now we're going to do what I like to call a zigzag. We're coming out of the top of this bead. Let's sew down the bead right next to it. And then we'll sew up the bead right next to that one. And that zigzag makes these last few beads that we just added a little more secure. So let's sew up 2 more rows. 1, and 2. And then we can do that again. Let's do another zigzag. So we're coming out of the top of this bead. Let's sew down the bead right next to it. And then we'll sew up the bead right next to that one. Now let's sew up 2 more rows. And I feel very confident that those last few beads are extra secure. They're not going to get loose and fall out. So let's cut our thread. Taking our long nose pliers, we're going to hold on to the thread, and then trying to get our scissors as close to the bead as possible without cutting the bead. Let's just cut off the thread. And that completes our number 2 unit. We only need 5 of these for the project, so go ahead and do this 4 more times, and I will see you in a sec. That was so much fun. Thank you so much for being here with me today and beading along with me. Remember to like and subscribe and hit that bell button so you're notified when the next video comes out. I can't wait to see you there. Thanks for watching.